Hello.
Hello, hello, the world.
Hello, the world. Welcome to the Revolver Fan First podcast, where we speak to artists about their history as a fan, because all artists were fans first. Today we have Nate Newton of Converge and Old Man Gloom and Cave In. And Blood Moon. You're a man of all seasons.
I can't say no to things, and so I end up in bands.
Just say. Well, you've been embraced. You've made your mark. Let's go back to the beginning. What was the first band you really got into?
The first band I really got into, the Stray Cats.
Tell me more.
I was obsessed with the Stray Cats. I loved them. I think, honestly, for me, it started when I was, I don't know, maybe 5 or something, and I saw Grease. And that was it. I was like, this is awesome. I was like obsessed with like rockabilly haircuts and jackets and everything. And then I think Stray Cat Strut was their first big single. So I was already like, wow, that's cool. Rockabilly's cool. Even though I had no idea what rockabilly was, because Grease, there's no rockabilly in Grease. And then it was right at the infancy of MTV, and Stray Cat Strut came out, and I was like, whoa, who are these guys? This is cool. And my mom was like, they're the Stray Cats. You like them? Let's get you a record. And I was obsessed with them. They were like, when I was a kid, they were like the greatest band on earth to me. And I actually still really love the Stray Cats.
I kind of feel like, and I could be wrong, there's some sort of link between your relationship with music culture and like skating culture and that kind of
very
stuff.
much so.
So how do they intersect? I had to do that. That's important.
Oh, you froze there for a second. You froze for a second.
How do they intersect?
How do they intersect?
Yeah, skating culture and music culture with you.
Well, I mean, I was always interested in music, and just because, of my family, it was just there. And I don't know, I always connected with it on some level. But I also got into skateboarding around the same time that we had already mentioned. I was probably 5 or 6, something like that. And like growing up in the town I grew up, it was kind of just part of the landscape. Virginia Beach was a big surf town, and so everybody had a skateboard too, and it was just kind of what you did. So as I got a little bit older, getting into like middle school, being into skateboarding and stuff like that, I was getting into skateboard culture, and I was buying Thrasher magazine and all that stuff. And it was like, looking in the back of the magazine, they had all the mail order ads that were, like, I've got an old Thrasher right here, as a matter of fact.
Please do. Please demonstrate.
Look at that. Yeah, like, like, here you go.
So we'll take, wait a minute. So tell me, are these tapes?
These are shirts.
These are shirts. So this is like proto merch.
Yeah,
the beginning.
Seriously. So like, I'm like 11, 12 years old, 10 or 11, I guess, actually, looking in the back of Thrasher magazine, like, what's all this? This is what skaters are into, and Thrasher had like Notes from the Underground and Pus Zone and all that stuff. And so they covered music. They used to cover music a whole lot more than they do now.
Yeah.
And like, so I was like, well, this is what skaters listen to, then I need to get into it, and that was really kind of the beginning of it. So I got Thrasher Skate Rock Volume 1. It was a tape. I got that when I was like 11.
Yeah.
And that was like the first punk record I ever owned.
Awesome.
And I was like, all right, I'm into this. I'm into punk, I'm into hardcore.
This is my thing.
Yeah. And then I literally would just go and look in the back of Thrasher and all those mail orders, and I'd be like, what's that? What's that skull? The Misfits. Okay, I need a Misfits record. Oh, Black Flag. I need that. And I got every record, and then like, did that same thing that everybody does, where then I start going through the thanks list on every record, and I'm like, all right, what are these bands? I got to get all these bands too. And so
it goes on forever. It's infinite.
It wasn't until I was like 13, probably about 13, that I really became aware that there was an actual music scene where I lived, and there were shows happening. Like I went to my first show probably when I was 12 or 13, but that was like totally random.
Yeah.
And I didn't like really know what was going on, and I didn't realize that there was a culture around it. I mean, I knew there was a culture. I didn't realize that there was culture where I lived.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, as I got a little bit older, I started becoming aware of it, because, you get into middle school and high school, and you start meeting other kids your age that are also into this stuff. And this guy's got an older brother who went to see this band at this club, and you got to go there too, man. And that's kind of just what happened.
Do you remember your first show after the first one you were aware of?
Yes, I do. Yeah, well, yeah. I remember my first show just because I can't forget this, but it was Agnostic Front and the Vandals. And I went
incredible, dude.
Yeah, well, the story of it is even more incredible. So like I went to my mom, her friend lived at the beach in another part of the town from where we lived. And we'd go over there to hang out, and she lived closer to like where all the surf and skate shops were. And so I would always be like, I'm bringing my board, and I would go skate down to the shop that was near her, and use my allowance to buy stickers or something, or like a magazine. And so on this particular day, I skated over there, and there were other kids, like some older kids from my neighborhood who skate, that were there. And like, we lived kind of far from there. So I was kind of like, what are they doing here? And they're all like, what are you doing here? And, I was like, I'm just skating my, we're visiting my mom's friend or whatever.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, we're skating too. We're going to this show. You should go. And I was like, what's a show?
That's cute.
They're like, a punk show. Come with us. And I was like a concert? And they were like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And so we skated down to this club, and it was that show. And it must have been all ages. I mean, it must have been. I can't imagine why it would have been, but it must have. I got in there. I got into the club. I don't think I think somebody thought maybe I was someone's kid or somebody's younger sibling or something. I do vaguely remember the person at the door looking at me like, the fuck? But I just walked in. Awesome. And it was horrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. I had no idea what was going on. Man, I can't even remember what year it was, honestly. I might have been older than, I might have been like 13 or 14. I don't know. I don't remember. It was
the 80s though, right? The end of the 80s. Yeah.
The 80s.
You got into punk at the right time. Yeah.
Like late 80s.
Yeah.
Late 80s. But I remember being absolutely terrified. And I didn't know Agnostic Front. I didn't know the Vandals. I didn't know anything really. But actually, I might have known one or two Vandals songs, like Anarchy Burger. Was that out yet then?
It's a question for the ages, Nate. It's a question.
Yeah, I can't remember.
The ages.
Either way.
Yeah.
Either way, I got scared and waited till the other kids from my neighborhood couldn't see me, and I snuck out and I went home. I was scared.
So it was scary. Yeah. And now look at you.
Yeah. Well, interesting side note to bring it all back around.
Yeah. Go on.
However many years later. I was at a festival and I was talking to Randy Blythe from Lamb of God.
Virginia.
And yeah, he's from Virginia. And I
Yeah.
mean, we've known each other for a long time and our bands played together all the time. And he mentioned that show. And I was like, oh, I was at that show. I was scared out of my mind. And I left because I saw a dude get beat up. And he was like, that was me. I'm the guy that got beat up at that show. Yeah.
No!
Yeah. And,
You're kidding me.
I swear. You can ask Randy.
Holy
it's
shit.
True.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Why did they beat him up?
I was a kid. I'm not exactly sure. I think Randy said that he was kind of heckling all the skinhead types, and they didn't like it. You know,
that's a pretty badass way to So
yeah.
You shared a moment many moons ago.
Yeah, many moons ago. Even though we didn't know until many moons later.
That's pretty funny. Like,
yeah.
It's a small world, but I wouldn't want to paint it. It'd be really hard. It'd be really hard. There's so much detail you'd need to have. Like
a lot of work.
Well, how did you get to an instrument?
How did I get? Okay, so my family went very soon after that, actually. Or no. Yeah. Okay. Very soon after that, my family moved to Georgia.
Yeah. Right.
We lived there for a year. It was not a good year, but I didn't love it. But I met some other skaters in my school that lived close by, and so I would go to their houses, and some of them were into punk, and were giving me, we were trading tapes and giving each other records and stuff.
Tape trading. Yes. Wait. Yeah. Tape trading. So did this happen a lot at this point?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so this is more like the lower level kind of tape trading, where it was literally like, hey man, I'll make a tape for you with all the punk records I have, and you make one for me with all the punk records you have. So then we both have all the punk records. It was like that. I got more into like actual tape trading later.
That's okay.
Yeah, but
yeah.
Anyways, one of those kids had a guitar, and I would go over to his house, and he would like play Metallica songs and stuff, and I was like, whoa, like you can like do that? You can just get one of those and you can do that? I want to do that. And then that was pretty much it. I was like, I want a guitar. We moved back to Virginia. I got a guitar, and then that was that. And I still haven't really learned how to play it. But
you do okay. Like you're pretty, like you're maintaining a pretty solid front over a number of bands with
I'm pretty
discerning fans as well. Like they're not, you're not, if you're phoning it in, you're doing a very good job.
Like, I'm pretty good at faking it like I know what I'm doing, but
I do. Can you demonstrate the different the vocal styles that involve Cookie Monster and Oscar the Grouch? Can I make you do this? That was my favorite thing on the internet yesterday. Just side note. Yeah.
You saw that.
I did. Well, yeah, no, it was my favorite thing on the internet yesterday.
Do you want me to do that now?
I would actually, I would. I'm sorry. Okay. Can we do that as a side note?
Yeah, I'm just watching my dog. I want to make sure I don't scare her. She's right there. But so like, do you want me to give the backstory?
I really would. Yeah.
Okay, so it started out me and Steve talking about screaming vocals, and he was like, "Oh, I gotta get my scream back because I don't really do it that much, And then I was like, "Oh, you could pay one of those death metal vocal coaches," and he was like, "Man, I did that shit, and it sucked. It didn't help." And then I was like, "This is all it is, dude. Literally, all you do, you find your like good yell talking voice, like and then you just clench it. That's it. And then you decide, like in the video I said, you're either Oscar the Grouch, where you're like, get out of my trash can, or like you're sorry pup, and then or you're a Cookie Monster, and you're like, C is for cookie, and that's it. And then you just do it louder than I just did it. And
well, these are important lessons, and ones that maybe took you decades to learn. you know?
Yeah, well, it took like doing tours of like completely shredding my voice and not being able to sing before I realized that you don't have to push that hard. Once you realize that and it's not coming from here, it's coming from here. It's easy.
There you go. So
Nothing to it.
this is lessons from a pro. Did you hear shouty
Woo!
vocals at this point?
Did I what?
Were you listening to shouty vocals at this point? Were you into that kind of stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was. I mean, because of, I guess shouty is that's a wide spectrum.
It is.
Like, I guess I wasn't really listening to like the fully throaty screamed vocals all that much.
Yeah.
Until, I mean, kind of close to that general time frame. Like I think I discovered I discovered stuff like Negative Approach a little bit later, and like Poison Idea, maybe around like 15 or 16 years old, where I was like, whoa, these guys are shredding their throats, like this is wild. And yeah, I don't know. It's hard
So
to put all that on a timeline.
Your first band?
My first band was terrible.
Yeah, what was it called?
There you go. What was that?
What was it called?
It was called Lift.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's all you have to say about it.
It's not good. I love all the people involved in it, and I'm still friends with them all.
That's amazing.
And I think every one of them would agree that it was not very good.
Yeah. Well, we got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about starting a band when you're in like middle school or high school, like I played guitar for a couple of years before I started a band, by the way.
Yeah.
But you don't even become aware that you can actually start a band or I didn't until I was in high school. So I was like 16, maybe something like that, 15 or 16. And like, when you're starting a band, then you're not looking for, it's not like you're putting up, maybe other people were like putting out the ad or the flyer that's like looking for other punks that are influenced by, the Misfits and freaking Black Flag to start a raging hardcore band or something. It was like, oh, that guy lives in my neighborhood and he has a drum set. He's in the band.
Sold. Did you meet? Yeah. Did you bond over the Misfits?
Oh, did I bond with the other guys?
Yeah.
In the band? It's not really.
No. Tell me about the Misfits and you, because I feel like it's probably, yeah.
I don't even know. I think it was probably Thrasher magazine.
Yeah.
That turned me on to them. Actually, I know it was Thrasher magazine, and just that skull. You see the skull, the Crimson Ghost, and you're just like, what is that? And then once you know what it is, you're just like, that's the Misfits. It's like such just this stark, amazing piece of branding. Like,
yeah.
I hate saying branding when we talk about music, but like you see that and you know what it is. And so when I saw that, I wanted to know what it was, and I started seeing it everywhere, and noticing it like on people's, like the punks' jackets, or like a sticker that somebody put up, or like a stencil, a spray paint stencil that somebody made. And, it was like, this is a thing. This is like a big thing. I want to be part of this thing, And I'm trying to remember I think the first Misfits record I got was actually, it was probably the worst one to start with. I got Evil Live first.
Yeah.
Which is just a total fucking mess. But like, I loved it. I put it on and I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I can't even tell what's going on. It sounds like a mess. are they in time? Are they playing together? I can't tell if they're playing together. This is crazy. He curses a lot. Like, but the cover of that record with all three of them in the coffins, and like, I was just like, with the Crimson Ghost over the I'm just like, this is the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen. I think I bought that one because it was cheaper than the other ones at the record store. And so I was like, I'm gonna get that. And if I do that, then I'll have enough to get this other record too, which I think was a JFA record. I can't remember. Yeah. But yeah, it was JFA record with the which one is it? I can't remember what it's called. I'm brain farting. With the full pipe, with the guy skating the full pipe on the cover. But yeah, I put that Misfits record on, and at first I was like, what is this? I don't know if I like this. I better rewind that and listen to that again to make sure. And I listened to it and I was like, still don't know if I like this. Let's listen to that again. And I just kept listening and listening and listening. And then finally I was like, this is fucking awesome, to the point that like I could sing along to the entire record, including all of Glenn's banter and like all of the shit that like Glenn and Jerry were yelling in the songs. Like,
you knew all of it.
I knew all of it. And so I heard all of like those classic Misfits songs on a live album first. So like when I finally did get, Walk Among Us and Earth AD and all that stuff, and it was like, oh, you can hear what's going on these records. Kind of.
Is there an Old Man Gloom thing to do with this?
What do you mean?
I don't know. Was Old Man Gloom designed to listen to a lot of times?
Maybe, or to just try to listen to once and be like, this sucks, I hate it.
Absorb it. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like that's a weird thing to suddenly come to you, that there's some sort of analogy here. I don't know.
I think Old Man Gloom, maybe I've said this before to you, I don't know.
Probably, who knows?
Old Man Gloom is very much interested in challenging our audience.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Not in the way that like when most artists say we like to challenge our audience, like make them think or whatever. We're like literally challenging you to like us. Like we're literally, every time we make a record, we're just like, okay, that's a good song. What can we do that's going to make people hate to listen to it? Let's figure that out now. And
see,
we do it specifically because it makes us laugh. So like literally everything that Old Man Gloom has ever done, everything, even stuff that seems really fucking serious, we only did it to make each other laugh.
Well, what are bands that do that for you? Make you laugh, like that make you just go, this is ridiculous, this is absurd. And how has that changed over time?
Like in a good way, or
maybe both. How did you feel about Gwar? Was Gwar a big band in Virginia at this point?
Oh, yeah, of course they were.
Actually, let's talk about Gwar briefly.
Okay.
So they were a big deal.
I don't think you can talk about Virginia underground music without talking about Gwar.
Yeah, actually, let's set the scene. What kind of stuff was going on? What kind of bands? What did it smell like? Where did you put the shows on? Was it disgusting?
First time I saw Gwar, 14 or 15. Was it at the Atlantic Beach Club in Virginia Beach? I don't remember.
But still.
Yeah, I think it must have been the Atlantic Beach Club. It had to have been. All of that stuff just, yeah. It's so hard for me to remember now. I banged my head too many times.
That's a part noise.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, Gwar always kind of existed in their own sphere. Yeah. There's never been anyone like them, and especially in Virginia. But they, being from Richmond in that VCU scene, they kind of, there was always that scene always produced a lot of really, really interesting musicians and a lot of really interesting bands. And so, man, there was a pretty decent thrash scene in Virginia at the
Yep.
time. And, Gwar always kind of walked that, they were always, they could play with the thrash bands, but they could play with the punk bands and stuff. And I mean, their shows were always an event, you know. Um, I don't even remember what bands I saw open for Gwar in Virginia at this point.
Did people like it? Like, did people understand? Did they just,
Yeah.
they were local boys done good, right?
Yeah. But I mean, how could you not
They're
love
lizards.
it? I mean,
Yeah,
it was like, it was like live theater, like heavy live metal punk theater. And it was just, and it was interactive, and you were part of the show. Like it was fucking awesome, like, um, yeah, like I don't know. I don't even know what to say about it. Like, it's just Gwar.
Yeah.
What else can you say about Gwar other than it's Gwar?
Yeah, well, it's you had the Virginia experience. How long did you stay there before you moved to Boston?
I moved when I was, what year was it? It was 99.
Wow.
99. So I was 24.
Yeah. So you were in bands at that
Yep.
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I played
tell us about the first band you're not embarrassed by.
I haven't found one
Yeah,
yet.
no, we're not quite there yet. Any day now. Any day now. Yeah.
So I started a band with, after my first band, me and the singer started another band called Channel.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that was when we were like, we had like really started finding out about the underground scene all across the country. Like, I was trading tapes and records with people at that point, and like zines and stuff like that.
How do people get into that? So
And
because I feel like kids now don't know about like tape. Well, I mean, I have a rudimentary understanding of it, but how did tape trading work? So people basically put ads in magazines and said, "Hey, if you want a copy of our tape, send us a tape," or something along those lines.
Yeah, people used to do that in like the back of all the metal magazines and stuff like that. So I got a few like pretty awesome metal demos that way.
Awesome.
For me, it, like with the punk and hardcore scene, it didn't quite work that way. It was a little different.
Yeah.
Not that there was like any way that it was supposed to work or anything, but like, back then, especially, so we're going back to like early 90s now.
Yep.
Like 91, 92. So like, there had been the first wave of hardcore in the early 80s. Then the second wave happened, and you had like Cro-Mags and, like just the stuff, like a lot of those bands that were getting bigger at the time were actually getting record deals on like larger labels, and
Yep.
they had real booking agents and stuff, and stuff was coming through and like playing in bigger clubs. And then it all just kind of collapsed on itself, or at least from my perspective, it did back then.
Yeah.
Like it seemed to just kind of go away.
Wow.
But I was a kid, so I don't know what fucking.
But still, it's still a perspective, though. You were there.
It seemed like a lot of that stuff had just died.
Yeah.
And by the early 90s, hardcore, at least where I lived, had really just gone completely underground.
Yeah.
And by that point, there weren't really any venues doing hardcore shows. There weren't bands coming through. And so we all just, we were like, once my shitty band ended, although this was about when my shitty band was together, I'm getting all mixed up here, but
okay.
basically what happened was our group of friends, we all started our own bands, and we just started, go through the records of the bands we liked or other bands that were happening at the time and just write them letters like, hey, do you want to come play here? Cool, come on down, we'll do a show, and like we'll rent a hall, or we'll do a house show, or like, maybe we'll get really lucky and we'll get to play in one of the clubs here. And that's kind of what happened. And so by doing that, we just, all of us, like my band, my group of friends, and then like all these other bands, we just kind of started growing our little, network of people. And through that, we just ended up having pen pals. So people would start traveling to come to the show in our town because there wasn't anything happening in their town.
Whoa.
Or their friend's band came, and so they came up with them, and they were like, oh, I do this zine here, and you'd be like, whoa, this is cool. I'm gonna write this dude a letter. Here's our demo. I want to mail you our demo tape. And then they'd mail you something back. And, you I just amassed a lot of cassette tapes that way.
And that's, so you guys kind of started in a vacuum, just based
Very
on
much.
what you're into. I had no idea that was the case. Like, you could, because you're not, if you're not there, like, this stuff isn't really recorded. This history isn't really 100% recorded continuously. So it's interesting.
Yeah, that time period certainly isn't.
It's just not on record. So it's interesting to hear about it and kind of go, wow, that kind of started from the ground up. And and it's interesting. Reba from Code Orange was just saying, she's like, everything kind of hinged on people having friends to show up to the gigs. Like, whether your friends showed up or not could make or break a scene. Like,
yeah, that was true. I mean, especially in our case back then. I mean, because the scene where I lived, it was like there were two scenes. There was the 21 and over scene.
Yeah,
we were not part of that. We weren't allowed, and that scene kind of looked at us as a bunch of little pissy kids, and they weren't wrong, but they weren't interested in anything we were doing, and we, even if we were interested in what they were doing, we couldn't go. So like, we started doing this. We kind of just grew our grassroots DIY scene where we were doing stuff in houses and basements, and not a lot of basements where I grew up, but
gymnasiums.
We were just doing things our own way because that was all that was available to us. And so, I mean, we weren't in a complete vacuum. I mean, there were record stores, there were bigger zines like Maximum Rock and Roll. So we were like aware of what was going on out there, but like, all of it initially just started because we were like, we should have a show, your band and my band, we're friends, let's do a show. And then it was just like you said, it was all your friends came, and then they brought their friends, and then they brought their friends. Yeah.
And it became a thing. And are we still in Virginia right now, or have we moved?
Oh yeah, very much.
Yeah, very much still. Very much, yeah.
Yeah. So like, then my, as Channel started playing more and like kind of building a little bit of a following in the area, we started getting shows at clubs. And it was because when we played, the kids from that scene would come out, and we were good for 100 kids to show up to help bolster the numbers. But we would only play all ages shows, so they were still kind of few and far between. It was usually the shows we played were usually shows that either we or our friends put on or had some hand in putting on.
So were you listening to a lot of local bands at the time? Was that kind of the bulk of your listening, or was your like
it wasn't the bulk of it.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I've always been just interested in music across the board. I always wanted to know what was happening everywhere. But at that time, Virginia had a really fucking great punk scene. We had Avail, we had Four Walls Falling, we had, our scene. And then there was like this like scene around a band called Mayday that was just an incredible heavy hardcore band. And the Richmond scene was just really strong. There were lots of great bands there, but Avail was probably the you know the flag bearer for.
Yeah, and the guy from Avail, didn't he do something nice? He did something
He
nice.
did, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So my very first band, the one that wasn't good. So I was at a show at the King's Head Inn in Norfolk, Virginia. I can't remember what the show was, but we had just made our first demo, and it's really not good. There may or may not be some rap parts on it. That wasn't my doing, but I didn't
There
have
it was.
I did not have the microphone, so I was outvoted. But anyways, so I had my backpack and a stack of our demos, and I'm like I'm at this show, like, hey, you want to buy my band's demo? But check it out. And Tim Barry from Avail walked past me, and he just kind of looked over at me, and I was like, whoa, that's Tim from Avail, because I'd seen Avail many times, and they were
awesome,
one of my favorite bands. And so Tim came up to me, and he was just like, hey man, I see you around at shows all the time. I'm Tim. And I'm like, oh, I'm Nate, just this awkward teenage kid. And he's like, is that your band's demo? And I'm like, yeah. And then he goes, I want to buy one, and I'm like, no way, I want to give you one, man. Here, just take it. You're Tim from Avail, and he's like, no, take the money. I'm paying you for this. This is what we do. We support each other. Take the money. Aww. And he made me take the money. And I was like, okay, here, thanks, man. And he was like, thank you. And then that was that. And I didn't think anything else of it. And then a couple weeks later, the phone rang, and
the landline.
Yeah. And Avail asked us to open the show for them there, when they were coming to play. And we were That's like, awesome. Really? That's awesome. That's incredible. Like Tim was one of the just Avail were some of the very first people in my life that genuinely supported what I did and like went out of their way to be helpful. And I don't know if things would have worked out the same for me had I not met them. They're really, really an important band. Not just for me, for all of Virginia and for so many other people.
What was so special? Oh God, I'm getting an echo. Can you hear that? Wait.
No, I don't hear it.
Now it's gone. Okay. What was so special about them?
They were the band that kind of brought everybody together. Yeah. Like they were the band, like if you went to see Avail, well, let me backtrack that. Like if you went to see a random hardcore band at the time, like Sick of It All, you were going to see like a lot of skinheads and a lot of, some straight edge kids and a lot of people acting tough. And it was great. Sick of It All was incredible. Still incredible.
They're really good. Yeah. Good guys too.
Still incredible. But that era of Sick of It All, maybe it's just nostalgia for me because I was young and impressionable, but I remember seeing them then and having my mind exploded. They were incredible. But I'm using them as an example because there was a very specific set that would go see bands like them and then like the punk bands would come through and it would just be the punk people, not the hardcore people. And that may not have been true everywhere else, but where I was, everything was very fragmented.
Yeah.
Avail would play, the punks would be there, the hardcore kids would be there, the skinheads would be there, the fucking goths would be there. Like
if you bring out the goths, man, you got
everyone was at the Avail show, and it was always positive and fun. Everyone singing along. Half the time, half of the crowd was getting naked and stage diving, and it was just a wild, raucous, fun time every time. And I mean, their songs were fucking incredible. They were great, and they were one of the first bands that I remember putting out their own records. They put out their first LP, Satiate, on their own. And I remember like really vividly being like, they did this themselves.
Awesome.
Those guys are like not that much older than us. We can do this.
Yeah.
Why don't we do this? You know, like they set the example for pretty much everything.
Like
I
DIY
can,
culture.
yeah. I mean, I can, well, I don't know about DIY culture, but for me,
It can't, well, do it yourself is.
yeah.
I sound like I'm turning into a thing, but it's just like doing it yourself doesn't have to be a
I mean,
culture. It's a thing.
a lot of that was just out of necessity.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get too far off the subject, but I can tell you very specifically the two bands that probably had the biggest impact on me, not only musically, but just as how to operate as a band and how to, work ethically and
Yeah.
do things on your own terms are Avail and Neurosis. Those two bands showed us how to do everything.
Really?
You know, I mean, for me, they like
Yeah.
they were the shining example of how to make it work.
How did you find Neurosis?
Everybody was somewhat aware of them,
Yeah.
because that East Bay punk scene was so popular. And
Yeah.
then they were the band that really was very different than the other East Bay stuff. You had like Operation Ivy and Green Day and, the more poppy melodic stuff. And then here's Neurosis putting out The Word Is Law on Lookout Records. And I'm like, Lookout? Oh, cool. I'll get that. And I put it on and I'm like, what is this? What is this? But I was into it. I was like, it's heavy and weird and just, I don't know what's happening. Is this industrial? What is this? And yeah, then they put out Souls at Zero. And I mean, they were like a touring machine.
Yeah.
And we were lucky enough to have them come through our little scene and play in a room that held 80 people, maybe 100 people, on this little stage. Like they couldn't even fit on there. I mean, it was this tiny little room. And I went to go see it. My friends Mayday opened the show.
Yep.
And by this point I was like, yeah, that record's cool. I don't know if I really like it, but they're cool. I'll go.
Yeah.
And I went and I watched them. Buzz Oven played too, who I was also
Nice.
like, I was into Buzz Oven at the time because they were from not far from us.
Yeah, Randy Blythe said he used to do merch for Buzz Oven. Or maybe it was Matt Pike, one of those dudes.
I honestly could have been both.
It could be at the same time. They didn't know each other.
Yeah. But yeah, like so I'd seen Buzz Oven. I loved Mayday. I was like, yeah, I'll stick around for Neurosis. And I had my mind split apart by them. I was like, I didn't know that a band could be like this. Like, not just good, but and not just intense, but like feeling like they were plugged into something completely different. Like, have you ever seen a band where you're like, they know about things that I don't know about?
Oh yeah, shit, yeah.
And like, I want to know what they know about. I want that energy. I want to be part of that. And that's exactly.
How old were you then?
17, maybe 18, 17 or 18.
You had some pretty formative experiences even as a very young person. When it comes to music.
I was lucky. I was just lucky that I came up.
It was a good era to grow up in.
Yeah. Like, I might be getting that totally wrong. Like the year.
I think it doesn't matter.
All of that
it's cool.
is a blur, but I'm gonna guess 17.
Is Neurosis a thing you guys
over? Like
in Converge? Do you guys agree on Neurosis and Converge?
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
It's a formative.
Yeah. Like Neurosis, they were the band that we were like, they did it. Neurosis can do it. We can do it. If they did it that way, that's how we're going to do it.
Well, yeah, actually, let's get to Converge. How do we get to Converge now? Okay, we're
How
in
do we get?
Virginia. We'll leap forward a few years. You go to you move to Boston.
I'm playing. Oh no, this is before that.
Oh.
So I'm playing in Channel still. Um, we did a show at the King's Head Inn with it was Channel, Dive, Just a 14, and I can't remember who else, but just that. So, oh, all right. I'm getting all frazzled here, but
It's okay. I'm sorry.
so Dive was from Massachusetts, and they came down. Aaron Dahlbeck, who played in
Bane and stuff.
Converge,
Yeah.
was with them. He wasn't in the band. He was just with them hanging. And that was my introduction. Like he was like, "Oh, you guys are awesome, man. Like here's my band's demo." Or 7-inch or I can't remember. But he was like, "Oh, you got to come up and play a show with us." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it, man. Cool." So, but just a little side note, an interesting side note about that evening. You had Dive, who the drummer was Matt Kelly, who now plays drums for Dropkick Murphys. You had Josta 14, the singer, Jamie from Hatebreed. Greg, the bassist, plays in Red Sparrows and Marriages, and like, but it was just the people in that room that went on to do different things just from this that we're all at this one show. It's pretty wild to think about that.
Yeah.
So anyways, I became friends with Converge initially through Aaron. Then we did a show up in Massachusetts. Those guys all came out and hung out, and then we were like, let's do a tour. So both Converge and Channel, we did our first tour together. And that was kind of the beginning of the friendship. And then
what did you listen to in the tour? What did you listen to when you were driving?
The radio, because the band didn't have a tape deck.
That's not okay.
Yeah. So we probably were just like classic rock stations or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. As was the style at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just became friends with those guys that way. And, you know, after Channel broke up, I was in another band. We toured with Converge. That band was called Jesuit.
Yeah.
And then by that point, Steven Brodsky was playing bass in Converge. And Cave-In was just starting to take off. And so he was like, "Oh, I want to focus on Cave-In." And Converge had a tour booked with Today Is the Day. And they were like, "We need somebody to play bass. You want to fill in on bass?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And that was 98.
Yeah.
And so I went on the tour with them, and then just like, I'm still filling in.
Still filling in.
Yeah.
It's been a while. One day they'll just be like, "Okay, that's cool."
Oh, the guy, he came, our bassist came back.
Yeah. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Well, what did you bond over stuff you liked and stuff you didn't like together with like Kurt and Jake when you first met and stuff?
I think they were
you like the same stuff, or do you fight over stuff?
Both.
Yeah. Yeah. Where are your lines of alignment and misalignment?
I think then it was being into the like that Vermiform Records, Gern Blanston, DIY sort of scene. So like we were like, I think Rorschach was probably the one that we were all like, "You're into Rorschach? I'm into Rorschach."
That's the thing.
Cool. We're good. Like that means you like fucking nasty guitar riffs and screamed vocals. We're friends. You know?
Yes, it's a fine place.
We're gonna get along. And yeah, like Born Against and all that kind of stuff. And then just like liking a lot of the same more aggressive metal bands and like the crossover metal punk hardcore stuff like The Accused, and we just
the dorkiest stuff you like.
The dorkiest stuff we like
Stopping So Cool. What's some terrible I mean, you're allowed to be cool. You guys kind of like, sorry. Yeah.
Fuck, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
like I don't believe in guilty pleasures.
Yeah, you
So,
just you fly a freak flag loud and proud.
One of the things that we bonded over once, it was on a European tour, was Hepcat.
It's pretty random.
We kept listening to Hepcat over and over and over in the van, and I think it was because like we were in a Sprinter van that had a TV and a DVD player, or not a DVD player, like a VCR, a VHS player. And the only VHS tape that was in there was like this Epitaph Records sampler tape
That's all you had.
Yeah, it just had a bunch of random Epitaph videos on it. And we kept fast forwarding through them all because we didn't like them, except for Hepcat. We were like, this song is pretty fucking good.
Hepcat. Well, do you think, like, you know, like the first album, you're like Jane Doe was a fairly significant release, and it was quite different, and you know, it still holds up. Like you made something 20 years ago that's still pretty solid, man. Like it's a, you know, people go and review it while running. I love that running review of Jane Doe.
There are things I would change now.
Yeah. Well, it's
the running review is amazing.
The running review of Jane Doe Converge is pretty much the greatest thing ever. Yeah,
it's definitely the best review of anything I've ever done.
It's but it's the way you
after that it's like hang it up. There's no topping that. What
were you listening to at the time? Do you think you guys were listening to different stuff, or is it the process of like distilling down the thing that changed it? Like what were you kind of thinking?
I'm sure we were all listening to different stuff, but to people who weren't into that kind of music or didn't know where we were coming from, I can see how it sounds like there was nothing like it before.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But it just hadn't come over the walled garden?
Maybe. I mean, I think, okay, so that was the first record where everybody was actually able, like, you know, proficient enough to actually do the thing that was in our heads and make it come out, you know. But I think that if you listen to it, like, our influences are pretty on our sleeves on that record. I mean, you know, and people, I guess if you don't know that history of
the whole sound
of that sound that came, you know, in the decade before it, or 2 decades before it, like, I guess it's not going to sound that obvious, but I mean, like, I listen to that record and I'm like, Rorschach, Drive Like Jehu, Entombed, maybe The Accused, like Hoover, like the late mid to late 90s Discord stuff, and then, like, you know, the like Today Is the Day, AmRep, noisy kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all that just mushed together pretty much. Maybe no one had thought to put that mixture together before, but that's pretty much what it was, you know. And I don't know, like, I feel like there was a whole scene happening at the time of somewhat like-minded people that were all of us trying to figure out how to make jarring music, and for some reason that record connected with people. It could have been anybody, honestly. It could have been any band, but I guess I think we did a good job writing songs on that record. You know, before that record, Converge and all of our bands, everything we'd done had moments, but I don't think it ever was fully realized until that record.
Do you think that was a moment where you guys got another level of fans, like talking about like this is a kind of concept of fan of, you know, that the flip of when people start really liking your band? What was that like when people start really, yeah.
It's funny because people like look at that record as like this high watermark, or you know, you know, a shift, a paradigm shift. And I guess it was, but in real time, it did not feel that way. I mean, I remember, Jake still has like this book that the publicist from Equal Vision, like I guess Equal Vision Records had hired a publicist to push the record, and or not, maybe just all their records probably.
Yeah.
I don't know the logistics of it, but Jake literally has this fucking folder that's thick of just printouts of reviews of the record.
Wow.
And they're all terrible reviews. Like, people hated it. People
so
hated it. And like people that had been into Converge for the nearly decade prior, didn't like it either. They were like, what the fuck is this? Where are all the mosh parts? Like,
mosh parts.
Where's the sing along? I can't tell what's happening. What is this? And like, there were people who liked it, but it wasn't like, you know,
the way it's seen now.
No, it was not. Like, there were people who really didn't fucking like it, and and I can't blame them. It's not meant to be liked. It's just meant to document that time period, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, as you said, like the way that it's regarded now, it was not regarded then.
It was, I suppose it's like everything. It's like Showgirls. People didn't appreciate Showgirls till years later.
Oh, I appreciated it right away.
Let's bring up the glory of fucking Showgirls. That's a seminal film.
It's so bad.
It's so bad. It's so great. My my old housemate had a commemorative edition of Showgirls with like nipple tassels and shot glasses. Just it was extremely camp and extremely disturbing. But hailed from around that era, the late 90s. It was the early thousands, whatever. How is your relationship? Okay, that's a hard right turn. We'll come back.
Well, I love that you just found a parallel between Jane Doe and Showgirls.
I don't think enough people have done it.
That might be the first time that's happened.
I don't think anyone's ever done it, and
that's why you're a genius.
We're innovators, man. We're innovators here, Nate. This is what we're doing. We're innovating. And
I don't know.
Not unlike anyway. How much does what you listen to affect what you're making, or is it a more of an internal thing and everything's just kind of distilled and now it just comes out in random bursts?
Anybody who tells you that their ideas are original is a fucking liar. Everything is a ripoff. Everything. I could go through every song I've ever written and tell you exactly what I ripped off.
Okay, go on. Pick one seminal Converge song.
Oh man, one seminal Converge
song. Just pick one. Come on.
Are there seminal Converge songs?
Yeah.
Now you put me on the spot. And
I know it's a pretty big thing. You've been on quite a few albums. So.
I can't think of the name of one Converge song now.
Yeah, neither can I. No, I mean,
Jane Doe, that's a song.
Yeah, there we go.
So I can't help you. Okay, I'll give you a good one, but it's not a Converge song.
Okay.
Old Man Gloom, Zozobra, Seminar 3, our 27-minute long song that like was one record that I don't know. People who are into Old Man Gloom are like, that song's incredible, man. It is a total fucking ripoff. Listen, it's so there's this. Do you know the band Low?
Yeah.
Okay,
so but Maynard James Keenan was talking about Low recently.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah, he's really into Low. Yeah.
Low is incredible.
Yeah.
I think it was on Things We Lost in the Fire. There's a song called Don't Understand. So I ripped off that, like the rhythmic pattern of Don't Understand, but I put it to the melody of No Quarter from Led Zeppelin.
That's so shameless. It's awesome.
There you go.
This is where the magic happens, right here.
It's that, and then after that, we were like, well, we need to do something else. And so I was like, hey, Aaron, like we had this long running joke about people who like he wouldn't put his phone number, which was the number for Hydra Head Records, on any of the Hydra Head records because people used to complain about shit so much. So I was like, let's play your phone number.
They call and complain.
Yeah. So it was like, let's play your phone number in the song. That's the next riff. So the next riff is literally just us playing his phone number. First we ripped off Led Zeppelin, then we played Aaron's phone number. That's it.
This is where all the good shit happens. This is the nexus of it all. Well, what?
Yeah, there you go. You're up to speed now.
But, I'm up to speed. Yeah, but you and Kurt.
But anyways, things that you listen to definitely influence what you write and what you play. And anybody that tells you that that's not true is either lying or is not self-aware, because everything influences you, whether it's I don't want to do that or that was cool. How did they do that? I want to figure out how they did that. How can I take that and change it into something else so that no one is going to know that I stole it?
That's some importance. Okay, well, what are you listening to now?
What am I listening to now?
Are you making a Converge album? Can you get on it? It's been a while.
We're working on. There's
you
things
should.
happening.
I mean, you got that Blood Moon thing, but come on, it's been years.
You know what I've been listening to this week?
Yeah. What?
The songs that they've released from the new Chubby and the Gang record.
What is? What's that about?
Chubby and the Gang.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
Oh, they're awesome. They're like this rockin' British street rock band. It's like hardcore meets street rock. I don't know.
What is street rock, Nate? What is street rock?
It's like after glam turned into boot boy stuff turned into the glam stuff, and then like in England that kind of split off a little bit, and you had like Cocksparer and there was Slade before that, and then Cocksparer happened when punk happened at the same time. And Cocksparer isn't exactly a punk band.
Can you draw us a diagram?
It's kind of like that.
Can you draw us a rock and roll diagram one day?
I can try to, but it'll probably be really fucked up.
No, but I think that's why it would be really good. I think it would have a disturbing amount of detail. At one point,
what else have I been listening to a lot of?
Yeah. Okay, Hellfest, you're drawing a diagram, and everyone gets involved. We're gonna put it on the wall. We're gonna do a mural. Everyone gets to write the history of rock and roll and connect it to something else that's on the board.
I like the way this sounds already. I'm into it.
It's gonna be
this is what it's like now in time. I have to look on my phone to tell you what I've been listening to.
This is where we've come a long way since the Neurosis and
the new 6 Organs of Admittance record.
Yeah.
Everybody's creaming themselves over this band Ikulu, so I checked that out. It's pretty good if you like the late 80s New York hardcore crossover kind of sound. A little bit of like Best Wishes era Cro-Mags meets Born to Expire Leeway kind of stuff. It's good stuff. The new Part Chimp record's really good. I was very surprised by the new Rudimentary Peni record. Very good.
Pleasantly surprised?
Yeah, I don't know why I was surprised. It's good. They're a good band.
You cold me. I was surprised. It was good.
Hey, you know what? This is interesting and has nothing to do with anything, but I've gotten into this Australian singer-songwriter.
Yeah, go on.
Liz Stringer.
Ooh, I'm not super familiar. Hey.
She's pretty awesome. It's like kind of like alt country stuff almost. Like if she didn't have an accent, I would have thought she was from the States.
Yeah, well, we share a lot of stuff culturally.
We do.
What do all the bands you love share?
Lots of white people there.
Yeah, a lot of bad blood.
Yeah.
That's a whole thing.
We don't have to go there.
No, we don't. No, but what do you think all the bands you love share? And what are 5 songs that changed your life? Which is once again something I'm dropping on people. Should drop out at the beginning so you can have time to think about it. It's cruel to just drop it on you like this, but I'm doing it.
Okay. All right. What was the first question? The first question was,
what do all the bands you love share?
Honesty.
Yeah.
In what they do. I mean, even if it's Gwar, you know, who are obviously acting, you know, but there's an honesty in what they do, in that it's very obvious that they love what they do.
Yeah.
And that they're passionate about it. And I think everything that I listen to, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, you know, that like, I'm looking for that connection that you have with someone who loves something the way that way.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain. You
No.
know, in your documentary, I think
Yeah.
I said I want to look at a band and know that they're not lying to me.
Yeah. And that's enough. Like that's maybe, well, I mean, it's not enough, but it on some level it is enough.
It honestly, that's mostly all I need. They could be the worst band I've ever seen and not be able to hold a, you know, not even be able to play together. But if I can see that they love it and that they're just enjoying it and believe in what they're doing, I will enjoy it.
Yeah.
Just see, because when you see someone in that, in that state where they're just like, I'm making this noise and I love it, it just makes you want to be like, I love it too.
I'm with you, man.
You're making me happy. That's really all it comes down to for me.
Have people kind of approached you guys to talk about this, about like in particular Converge? Because you guys have a lot of fans, like especially in other bands.
What do you mean? Like approach me to talk about?
We'll talk about being truthful, getting the truth from you guys.
I don't know.
No,
maybe not.
Maybe not.
Me.
No, I gave it a shot.
I mean, I'm the bass player. They don't ask me that shit. That's definitely the kind of thing that Jake gets cornered with.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And you've got the visuals. Your Jane is kind of like it's the Misfits skull a bit.
It's funny that you say that, because that was exactly, I remember vividly having a conversation with Jake before that record came out. Before, like when we were just writing it and trying to figure out the concept and where we wanted to go with everything. And like we were just getting to this point as a bit, like Ben had just joined the band, and like, we were starting to write music, and it was like, this is shaping up. Like, and I don't mean the record, I mean the band. Like,
yeah. Well, you've been solid ever since, right? Like,
yeah, we're like, this is becoming a unit, and we're all on the same page, And I just remember feeling like, oh, we're onto something here. Not even musically, just like the chemistry between the people. But I remember that relates to what I'm about to say. Like Jake and I talking about it as we were writing music and about making this new record, and like, what do we want to do? And we were coming out of that late 90s era of hardcore where, like, computers were just beginning to become like readily available to people, and like graphic design software was like in its infancy. Well, not in its infancy, but like
kind of
in its infancy, and
of being awesome,
and at the point where it was just beginning to filter out to people. And so like people were just like, I'm going to design our records, and they're just using fucking fonts that every computer has, and like
Comic Sans.
Yeah, seriously, like
it wasn't good.
But there was this whole era of record kind of looking the same, and like entire scenes of music, things just blending together, and like visually. Jake and I had talked about how visually we felt like punk rock and hardcore had just lost its identity. It was just like, it could have been, like a metallic hardcore band's CD, or a video game, or like someone's fucking school project, like
They look the same.
yeah, it was like, it's just, there's no art there. Where's the
Yeah.
art? This is just you putting a bunch of things together. You putting you taking someone else's picture and putting words over it. Like
It's not a cool
what
thing.
and we talked about, like you would see the Black Flag bars and you knew that it was Black Flag. You saw the Dead Kennedys symbol. You knew that was the Dead Kennedys. You saw the Misfits skull. That's the Misfits.
Public Enemy said we saw that like the Anthrax logo, and they're like we based some of the Public Enemy logo. We're like seeing all these like thrash bands play to 3,000 kids every weekend, and we're like, okay, the Public Enemy logo should look like a thrash band. That's a really random thing that I heard in a Chuck D.
Well, but that's the point. It's like having this stark thing that right away. That's what that means. And like Jake and I, we talked about that. If Jake is the one who obviously implemented it, and like he created that image, and it wasn't necessarily meant to be the new Misfits skull or anything like that, but we wanted to have this thing that you saw and you knew that that's what it was.
Yeah, and you did.
Yeah,
it was. Jake
did. I didn't. Jake's the artist. I'm just critiquing everything everyone does.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
Have you ever made each other cry?
From laughing? Yes.
Yes. Only laughing? Yeah. Yeah, fair play.
You
got a good marriage. You've been together 20 years. I mean,
I would say probably yes, or to the verge of, definitely. We have definitely fucking made each other very, very angry at each other many, many times.
That would be the nature of the beast, though, wouldn't it? Being in bed.
Well, hardcore, I don't know about now. Hardcore, when we were young, it definitely attracted a lot of people, and especially early on, it attracted a lot of damaged people, and people, very much so. I mean, because the whole idea was that there are no rules here, and like you can be who you are. And when you're young, you often mistake someone knowing who they are and their, what's the word I'm looking for? Like you often mistake that kind of confidence and energy for some kind of sage wisdom.
Yeah.
And then the older you get, you're like, no, that person was mentally ill.
I guess like the evolution from being a disciple.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but like false prophet.
Point being, what kind of people come together to make this kind of music? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, if you listen to our music, and there's obviously a lot of thought and passion put into it, but we're not fucking normal people.
This isn't normal.
I mean, if normal exists, but like we all have our issues, and when we were younger, they were just broadcast to the world, and especially to each other. And you put 4 people with strong personalities and all kinds of crazy neuroses into a van together, within 3 feet of each other for 6 weeks at a time, however many times a year, they're going to trigger each other, and people are just going to get fucking angry.
Yeah, it's just proximity. Yeah. Okay, well, on the fan thing, how different are you as fans, you 4? Like Ben Kirk, Jake, how are you? How do you get it? Like, do you get into bands the same way? Like, do you get kind of obsessed, or do you kind of dance along the edges, or?
I don't know if that's. I mean, I think Jake and I. I missed the last part of your question.
No. It was a fairly incoherent rambling of a thing, but just like whether you dance together.
Yeah, that's basically the way I think anyway, so it's perfect.
Good, so it works. Yes.
Yeah. I think I would say Jake and I tend to kind of consume music in the same way, where we're like both always just wanting to find more new stuff and like wanting to explore everything surrounding this new thing that we find, and then like finding out about something old and then wanting to know everything about that, and then oh well what okay, so this band put out this record in 1968 and it was incredible, what was influencing them, like oh, in genre of music I didn't know about, now I need to know everything about that. And so Jake and I are very similar in that regard.
Yeah.
Kurt has always had a much more analytical mind when it came to music.
Yeah, I'd be interested. Yeah.
Like I remember very specifically having a conversation, this was years ago, you know, where we were talking about music and Kurt was just like, I don't listen to music. Like he straight up, he was just like, I don't really listen to music. I have like a few bands, you know, I have the records that I really like, but he just didn't really search out new music. And I think that's probably changed.
Yeah.
With the way that technology and the just availability of music has changed.
Yep.
And the fact that he is just constantly immersed in music because he's in the studio all the time and new bands are coming in and he's hearing new ideas, and those bands are talking about the things that are influencing them. And so he's learning. So the way he finds music, I think, is a lot different than the way I find music. And
it's
Ben,
interesting. Hey, yeah.
Ben, I don't know.
Yeah.
Ben's an enigma to me. I mean, we have many of the same favorite bands, and then you know, he's younger than me, and a lot of the things he has lots of things that he loves that I'm like, that I can't. How can you even listen to that shit? You know, but it's because like I'm gonna go off on a tangent here real quick.
We like tangents here. Let's be real. It's a podcast.
All right.
We're allowed to go tangents. This is long form. Look at Rogan, 3 hours. We're not going to do 3 hours, but I'm just saying we can go off.
I've got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
So, so I think Ben's 5 years younger than me.
Yeah.
And this applies to the Cave-In guys too. They're all about that same age. And like, so, a lot of really this kind of applies to everyone below a certain age, and it's not a negative thing, it's just an observation I've made where like
a delineation, a line in the sand,
a delineation, because really, no joke, you have pre-Nirvana and post-Nirvana when it comes to underground music. And so like people my age and older who were around, who were into music and into underground music, and a lot of these bands before that hit always viewed that major label world as like something to avoid. It was always just like, that's not us, you know, that's not punk, we do this ourselves, like this is our thing, not theirs. And then Nirvana broke, and you know, which is amazing. First off, the fact that that's the band, that Nirvana is the band, that's just fucking incredible to me.
That guy can write a goddamn,
he could, that's for sure. But like Nirvana happened, Soundgarden, I mean, Soundgarden was already a band for a long time before that, but then boom, Bad Motorfinger came out, and then especially after Bad Motorfinger, but like things just blew up. So then when you get the guys that are like, the people that are like 5 years younger than me or more, they grew up seeing all of that stuff front and center on MTV. So, and like huge on the radio. So their frame of reference is usually pretty different, where it's like, oh yeah, trying to, you know, like aiming to be a big, huge, successful band. That's what you do. Whereas our generation was like, don't go after success. Who gives a fuck about that? Just make the music you want to make.
That's really interesting.
Because like to our generation, it wasn't even attainable to be successful. But
he's an interesting cat. Like like he definitely wanted that. Like I just read, I mean, I'm not saying it's like everything is through a lens or whatever, but I read a book his manager wrote about him, and they're like, that dude had a plan from the beginning. He wasn't like, he didn't want to live in obscurity. Like he wanted to be the biggest band in the world. Like it wasn't an accident that happened. And it's
I believe that.
And it's weird that came out of that culture, which definitely was not about that.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that. I guess more what I'm getting at is that
it's okay to,
most people from that era like looked at it as something that wasn't even a possibility
at all.
It was just like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And then it happened. And we were like, what the fuck? How did that happen? And then it was like, why is the football team here? Like, why is the football team at the fucking punk show? Get out of here.
Did that happen? So did that happen?
Yes.
Was there like a huge influx to like underground music after that time?
Yeah, man. Sorry,
like to other bands and stuff. That's not a bad thing, right? Like, well,
no, it was cool.
Yeah.
But you know, when you're a fucking high school, you know, exclusionary punk rocker, you're just like, fuck all these people.
What are they doing?
Like, you don't know what this is about.
I hope you did that to some people.
That's not anyone else's fault. That's just me being a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
We've all felt this way about bands we liked that suddenly got popular. We've all felt this way. We've all felt like, what are you doing here? What is
But I had the demo tape.
Exactly. What's your take on emo?
On emo?
Yeah, on emo bands and stuff. See, for me, I grew up with a lot of older goth friends who were into a lot of goth industrial and like Bauhaus and cool stuff. So I was like, this emo shit, I was just like, I don't agree with it. I didn't agree with it at the time. I didn't agree with it at the time.
Emo, what?
I don't know.
When you say emo, what era are we talking about?
What would you class emo as in this context? What would you call that kind of music?
I don't know what the context is.
Okay,
I would say that there are definite, like, different eras,
discrete eras,
and kinds of music that were called emo, and most of them have nothing to do with each other.
That's interesting. What was the first one?
I would say the quintessential, first real emo band would be Rites of Spring. And stuff that happened right around then. You know, there was Rain, there was Rites of Spring, there were a few other bands. Like, it all seemed to happen around that Revolution summer stuff that happened in Washington, D.C. But I think Rites of Spring is the quintessential emo band.
So if we were to go and get into some quintessential emo, we should go and get Rites of Spring.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. That's a good thing. This is educational. Let's be educational.
But what people would call emo now, to me, is just pop punk.
Cool, because that's kind of the way I saw it.
Yeah.
With a haircut.
Again, this comes back to the age thing. Like, if you ask someone my age, oh, who's your favorite emo band? They're probably going to say Rites of Spring. But then if like you ask someone who's 25, 20, who's your favorite emo band? They're like, oh, My Chemical Romance. And I'm like, they're just a pop punk band. Like, they're a great band. They are. I once
saw them and I said they were trying to be Queen. They were a high school band trying to be Queen, and then I got into this enormous argument that it was unwinnable because it was 100% accurate. Have you ever? Yeah, it's always good getting into an it was very valid. Like it was what it was. Anyway, okay. Old Man Gloom.
It's not really my thing, but My Chemical Romance is genuinely a good band.
No, they are a good band.
Like, dude can sing. They're great players. They write catchy songs. It's not what I want to listen to, but they are a good band.
They make a valid contribution, and who am I to judge?
Yeah.
What are there any bands you really hate though? That you're just not feeling, that you don't understand the world around?
I mean, pretty much every new metal band.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's an important point. What did you guys do when new metal happened? When did new metal happen? What was the sign of it? It wasn't a good thing.
I mean, some people love it. It again, it's an age thing, I
Yeah.
think. Like I think that a lot of people get like nostalgia and the time that they grew up mixed up with like, deciding if something is good or bad.
Yeah.
Like what was happening when I came up, that's just what that was my baseline.
Yeah.
That's what set my taste. It's not because it's the better thing. It's just that's what was happening.
That was the
And
style of the
so
time.
like people younger than me, that what was happening was new metal. And so that was their entry point to heavier music.
Yeah.
That was the entry point to heavier music for a lot of people. And to me, I was like, get that shit away from me. That is unlistenable. Like this is garbage. And I don't like speaking about music that way because I think everyone's expression is valid. But
Yeah.
like it was just a genre of music that I found no value in for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Hey, like it's a weird word as well, and talk like heavy music and what like rapping and shit like that. And then you look at a band like Rage Against the Machine, who I felt like kind of lived outside of that thing. And that was a band that I got really into as a kid and that had a really significant impact on me. But it's
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
they kind of came up at the same time, but they're always seen as a band apart.
I feel like Rage Against the Machine predated new metal.
They probably
Um,
did.
like
Oh,
when
they're a 90s band. Yeah, 91. You're right. Like the first album was
yeah,
what, 91, 92 or something.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
Korn started touring around like
The 2000s?
no, Korn was touring in like the mid '90s
Yeah, right.
because they like opened for Sick of It All on a tour.
That's really
Um,
random.
yeah, but like it just didn't appeal to me. Like
Yeah.
there were some hard turns that happened in music that like I just it wasn't for
You
me.
went over the road. You went over the road. You're like, I'm
And
not going down that road. I'm
yeah,
going.
it's like, oh, you guys are doing that now. I'm all set with that. That's
I'm
not for me.
good. You
Like
can go.
like when Sepultura Roots came out, um, a lot of people really love Roots,
I
and
love
for
Roots.
me, that was for me. That was the record where I was like, I don't think this is for me anymore. And
Wow.
yeah, I mean, in retrospect, I can go back and listen to Roots, and I'm like, oh yeah, there were some fucking songs on here.
Yeah.
But like for me,
At the
the
time.
last record where I was like a Sepultura fucking freak was Chaos AD. Um, at least at that time period.
Yeah.
Now in my 40s, I can go back and listen to the entire catalog and everything that all those guys did and be like, oh yeah, I can hear the line of why it was going that way. And like
That's
what
really, it's interesting. I was speaking to Igor recently and he was saying that he could never get into Metallica, that it just was jock music to him, and it was the music that all the kids who beat up the other kids at school listened to. And he was like, and there was always like violence at shows and they should be calling it out. And I was like, wow, I did not anticipate hearing that. That's an interesting
I
perspective
fucking
on it.
love Igor so much.
Isn't he the greatest? Like,
Igor is the best and he pulls no fucking punches.
well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think that's a bold statement. And to yeah, because a lot of actually heavy
But
metal.
I get it. I
How
get
did
it.
you,
I mean that was a lot of metal. Like even
yeah,
bands that I love, even like they just became it was a soundtrack for violence, to quote 90s hardcore
well,
bands.
what is your relationship with heavy metal? I just realized we've spoken for an absurd amount of time and I haven't really kind of said, yeah, because you're kind of in metal bands.
I'm not a metal guy at all.
Yeah, you're not. Hey,
there are metal bands that I like.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, I can dig deeper into it and really appreciate a lot of it. But like, so most people I know, it's
Yes.
my age and younger, who are playing in hardcore bands and got into hardcore. They were into metal first, and they found hardcore through like crossover bands. And I was very much the opposite of that. I got into punk
Yeah.
rock, and I found my way to hardcore, and I did not fucking like metal. I just did it. Like, it was like the more crossover thrash stuff. Like, I loved DRI,
Yep.
early DRI, like dealing with it in the Dirty Rotten LP, because they're just grimy and the songs are 30 seconds long and fast, and like, I liked that stuff. But metal, to me, it took me years to really start getting into metal. And it wasn't until I discovered the metal bands where you could hear the punk influence that I really started loving metal, like Sepultura
Yeah.
and
Well, they're
Entombed.
hardcore kids.
Yeah,
Like,
Sepultura and Entombed.
yeah.
Those are the two.
Because
that I was-
Cavalera, they're hardcore kids.
Oh,
That's what they kind of
100%.
said. They're like, what really formed us was hardcore and getting
Yeah.
into those kind of bands. Like, that's who we are. That's like Discharge and all this stuff. They're like, that's what we listened to when we were kids and we were angry and we were getting through stuff. That was, and because it was about real shit. Yeah.
Yeah, you can absolutely hear that in the music. And the same with a band like Entombed. Like, you can hear the discharge, you can hear punk, and then you can even hear like the Stooges in Entombed sometimes, like. So for me, that was more my way, like, through punk and hardcore and finding like the metal bands that I could tell were influenced by that. That's what kind of got me more into metal. And I mean, you can hear that in early Metallica too.
Totally.
But I was never a huge Metallica fan. I recognize why they're a great band and why people love them. And I've never hated Metallica. It's just not my favorite band.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel like it's a timing thing. Like, especially if you're I think Metallica's very much a timing thing. I think, like, whether you connect with them straight away or not, like whether they're on kind of a run, and how fast you're introduced to the first three albums.
Yeah.
If you first heard about them in the 2000s or whatever, or the 90s, like the first time someone shows you the reasons.
The first song, the second song that I learned how to play on guitar was Seek and Destroy, or Search and Destroy.
It's a great song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it Seek and Destroy or Search and
I should
Search and Destroy is
Iggy and Stooges.
Yeah. I'm fucking.
We know what we mean.
We know what we mean. That lets you know how much I don't really listen to Metallica.
And that's okay. You don't have to like everything.
Yeah.
Okay, 5 songs that change your life. I really have to drop it at the beginning.
I mean, I like the getting it thrown at you though.
Yeah. Because then it forces you. Yeah.
All right. We'll say, man. I should be thinking out loud right now, but I'm not.
Go on.
All right, one would have to be an X song. Maybe Hungry Wolf.
Good.
Hungry Wolf or Nausea.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with Nausea because the first time I saw the first decline of Western civilization, it opens with X playing Nausea, and I was like, what is this? This is the weirdest, most awesome shit I've ever seen.
Meeting Penelope was my biggest fan moment of my life.
Meeting
Penelope was, I don't even have words for she's the most ripped off, awesome punk rock, heavy metal chronographer. Those are words.
Chronographer.
Documentary. She is the most ripped off. She's patient zero.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, people stole everything from her. Yeah.
So there was a
That's the
grocery
director.
store.
If you don't know, guys, that's the director of Decline of Western Civilization, the
Yes.
documentary series, and also Wayne's World, which is actually how I found her, going back
that's
through
fun.
the liner notes of the films.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I found Decline through Wayne's World as a child.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So here's how I found Decline. There's a grocery store near my house, and they had a little video store where you could rent videos in there. And I had, reading Thrasher magazine, had just gotten into punk rock and stuff. And I would ride my bike up there, to like rent a movie or whatever. I would like rent Rad, the BMX movie, or BMX Bandits, another one.
Australia, yep.
Yeah, because there were never any fucking skate videos at that store, so I would just rent the BMX ones. But I would go and I remember it. I remember seeing the box for Decline of Western Civilization on the thing, and I was like, "What is this?" It's just Darby Crash passed out on the floor.
It's so good.
Like, what the fuck is this? And it was like LA punk rock, whatever. And I'm just like, Fear, Black Flag, X. I need to rent this. And so I rented it, and like my mom let me rent stuff on her card, and so I rented it. Came home, put it on, and was like, "What the hell is going on right now?
What is this right now?
What is this?" And like, I would make sure that I was the only person home when I watched it, because I didn't want to get in trouble, because there's so many swear words in it. They say fuck and they say shit.
So great.
Yeah.
I love that was a gateway drug for people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but I would rent it, and you could keep it for 3 days. And I'd watch it over and over and over. And then I'd take it back, and then I would rent it again right as I took it back. And I did that for months and months.
Everyone should go see these. They're really good. The first one's about LA punk. The second one's about glam rock and is hilarious, and was meant to have Guns N' Roses circa mid-80s at the end, but had Dave Mustaine instead, which was still pretty awesome. I mean, it was,
for me, it's all about the first one.
Well, the other one just kind of makes it look ridiculous.
Yeah.
The second one makes glam look ridiculous, which it was. Yeah. But it's trashy and fun.
Yeah, it's fun. The first one is like
gritty.
Yeah, it's gritty, and you're watching it like, what the hell what is this? It was like really documenting something that people didn't know about.
And didn't exist years later. Yeah. It didn't exist even a few years later.
Yeah. Right. So it was pretty cool.
It's lightning in a bottle.
But I rented it so many times that finally the manager of the video store was like, just
go.
Just take it home. Yeah, you can have it. You're the only person who rents this. You're the only person that rents this because you won't let anyone else rent it. So just take it.
You've owned it now. I love that. Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love
so all right,
stories.
X.
Anyway,
so 4 more songs. It's one of them's got to be a Bad Brains song.
Of course. Shit, we never talked about HR. Did you ever see Bad Brains back in the day?
You froze again.
Oh, sorry. Did you ever see Bad Brains?
Yeah, Bad Brains, COC, and Leeway. Yes.
What?
Bad Brains, COC, and Leeway. On the Quickness tour.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
He's a character. I'm reading that book about him, Finding Joseph.
Oh yeah, they are. That's a band with a lot of baggage and a lot of demons.
Yeah.
But made some of the most incredible music ever made.
Yeah.
Bad Brains, Sailing On, I guess, maybe.
Go on.
Just because I think that was the first Bad Brains song I ever heard.
Yeah.
And awesome. It was like, what is this? Oh man, I gotta think of 3 more songs.
Yep, you totally do.
This is hard.
You've got a lot of years to cover, like they could be extracted from, which is kind of makes it worse.
The thing is if you ask me this question again in 20 minutes, you're gonna get a completely different
answer. Yeah. That's okay. It's a moment. It's a moment in time.
Let's go with the Misfits. What Misfits song? Where do you start?
There's a lot of them.
Hybrid Moments.
Okay.
Just because I think that song in particular informed my love for like chaos and melody at the same time.
Yes. Which are important.
Yeah. Like I feel like I'm staying all in the same era right now, and there's so many songs that are
2000s.
2000s.
Yeah.
Shit, I don't even know what came out in the 2000s. I can't remember anymore. You know, oh, okay, I'm gonna go with like if this were records, I think I would be able to do it easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm
I want to
gonna
make
go
a playlist.
I'm gonna go with
everyone's songs on it.
Led Zeppelin, Achilles' Last Stand.
Yeah.
Because that, I think that is the apex of their entire catalog, that one song.
Wow.
It's like there's everything, that's everything that I love about Led Zeppelin in one song. It doesn't sound like any other Led Zeppelin song. It's heavy, it's intense, it's fast. It's just fucking awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, and like that's another song that I've been trying to rip off for decades now. And Converge has definitely used that song as a
reference.
As a reference many times.
Yeah.
So that's 4 that I just did.
I think so. Yeah.
I think of
one more.
Oh man, that's hard. This just popped into my head, so I'm going to say Drive Like Jehu, Here Come the Rome Plows.
Good. See, we've got 5 songs. They're a moment in time. They came out of your head. They're real.
Yes.
So I guess
ask me again in a week.
I will. We'll keep it going. Just
right.
Nate's life-changing songs as an ongoing live playlist. What do you think a lifetime of being a fan has given you? It's a final question.
I think it's just given me an appreciation for just wanting to hear more, you know, like it's made me it's made the hunt the best part of it, you know, like just wanting to hear more and the discovery of it and like that rush of like I've never heard this before, how have I never heard this, this is incredible, you know, like that feeling when you crack the code on something that you just never understood before, like you were like, why do people like this, and then one day you just hear it and you're like, that's it, this I love this now, why couldn't I understand this before, you know, like that was me with free jazz. Like I didn't like it for years, and then one day it was just like I just heard something and I'm like, this is fucking insane, it's so intense, what is this, and then, you know, next thing you know, I'm like obsessively buying free jazz records, you know?
This is a beautiful thing. It's like learning a language. You're learning new languages all the time. It's people using the same language. They're all using it's a variation on a language, but you know, it's a special thing. I think we went some places.
I think we did too.
Yeah, I feel like we've explored the world of fandom, and thanks Nate for coming on. Thanks to everyone out there in Revolver land. Can I say that? No, I'm going to. I just said it.
You're allowed. You're allowed to say that.
I'm saying it, and this was the Fan First podcast. Hope you enjoyed.